Beast in the Fog. The small town of Cedarville always seems silent, as if its inhabitants were afraid to disturb the fragile balance between the world of people and something else. Invisible, but tangible. The dense forest embraced Cedarville with its eerie webs, like a huge beast patiently waiting for its hour. At night, the trees whispered. Their branches seemed to squeeze the air, like the claws of a predator. It was as if the forest itself breathed, slowly, menacingly. The fog here did not just spread over the ground, it enveloped the houses, as if deliberately erasing the boundaries between worlds. Local elders said that the fog was the very soul of the forest, reaching out to the town, looking for something or someone. Their words were always accompanied by trembling hands and restless glances, although they tried to hide their fear. Every night, the forest became a real theater of frightening sounds. A howl like the sigh of a great being flowed through the borders of the town. From time to time, the night silence was broken by growls, the creaking of branches, and even someone's screams, which dissolved in a thick curtain of fog. Those who dared to listen told how the whisper of the forest draws you in, makes your heart clench with a foreboding of something bad. More than one daredevil tried to unravel the mystery of the forest. Those who returned said that something was watching you inside, not a person, not an animal, but something unknown that did not need explanation. Some found traces, strange, huge, and heavy. They disappeared at the edge of the mud, as if the beast had dissolved in the air. But there were those who did not return at all. Their names became part of the disturbing chatter in the local bar, and their faces disappeared from memory just as they disappeared into the forest. The old residents often shared stories about the past. Their tales of the horrors of the forest were both eerie and fascinating. People listened to them with a sinking heart, looking at the door as if waiting for the forest to come after them. "The forest takes its toll," said one of the old residents, his voice sounding like a verdict that needed no proof. One cold evening, when the fog covered Cedarville with a thick blanket, Tom and Lily left the local cinema with smiles, discussing the film they had just seen. Their small car, no longer new, but cozy, was heading home along the forest road. The evening seemed ordinary, quiet conversations, from time to time Lily's laughter and the rustling of dry leaves under the wheels. Tom, holding the steering wheel confidently, noticed that the fog was getting thicker and thicker, until the car's headlights could barely pierce this milky curtain.
I wonder how we don't get lost here.
He joked, but there was already something akin to anxiety in his voice. Lily, sitting in the passenger seat, laughed softly and began to search for a station on the radio to fill the silence with music. But then it happened. A loud, unexpected crash rang out on the roof of the car, forcing Tom to slam on the brakes. The car stopped, and they sat, holding their breath, staring into the thick fog ahead.
"What was that?"
Lily whispered, her voice trembling with fear. Their hearts were pounding as if they were ready to burst out of their chests. Tom slowly raised his eyes to the back window and suddenly fell silent, frozen in place. Lily, also imitating his movement, looked back, and what they saw sent a chill down their spines. A pair of shining eyes looked at them through the fog, as if the darkness itself had found its way to their car. The eyes glowed as if they reflected an otherworldly fire. Exhaling unevenly, Tom sharply pressed the gas pedal, but instead of the sound of the engine, they heard the crunch of mud under the wheels. The car was stuck, and the engine only roared in vain, not giving them a chance to escape from the trap. Fear, like a heavy canvas, covered the couple. They could only listen as the fog around them grew thicker and the sounds of the forest froze into an eerie silence. Nothing moved, only a pair of luminous eyes staring straight at them. The fog around the car seemed to breathe, thick and thick as milk. Tom and Lily could barely see each other through the fear that swept over them like a cold wind. And then it appeared. Slowly but surely, the creature began to descend from the roof of the car. Every movement of its own seemed deliberate, as if the beast reveled in their fear. Lily clung to Tom, her arms shaking like aspen leaves. They did not know what would happen next, but each second stretched out like an eternity. As the creature landed on the ground, Tom and Lily finally saw it in its entirety. It was a massive beast, clumsy, yet terrifying in its power. Its shaggy, matted fur was as dark as night, and its teeth, sharp as blades, gleamed in its mouth. The eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. It was not just rage, it was hunger, insatiable and terrible. The beast stood motionless, looking at them, and its breath, thick and heavy, filled the space, penetrating the interior of the car. The smell of rotting meat hit Tom and Lily in the face, forcing them to barely suppress a panicked scream. Tom instinctively reached for the door, but his hand stopped. He realized that any movement could provoke the creature. The beast took the first step forward. The branches of the trees behind it creaked and broke under its heavy paws. It seemed to be created to destroy everything around with its power and savagery. Tom and Lily could only watch, frozen like statues, their thoughts occupied with only one thing: the desire to survive. The beast, like a sinister predator, began to circle slowly around the car, its paws heavy on the soft ground, leaving deep tracks behind it. Its growl was like the roar of a distant thunderstorm. Low and piercing, it penetrated through the car window and settled in the chests of Tom and Lily. It seemed that with each step the beast took, its menace grew, and the light in its eyes became even brighter, as if reflecting its intentions. Lily was gripping Tom's hand so tightly that her fingers ached, but she didn't pay attention. Her body seemed as rigid as a marble statue, but her heart was pounding so hard that she thought the beast could hear it. Tom, though he tried to remain calm, could not hide the trembling of his hands. He heard Lily praying quietly, her words barely audible, but their emotion was palpable. They knew they had no chance of escape. The car stood still, like a soldier doomed to be shot, and neither of them could think of a way to resolve the situation. Their only hope was that the beast would lose interest in its prey, but it was not going to stop. Its movements became faster, its growls louder, and its silhouette increasingly dissolved in the fog, creating the impression that they were surrounded not by one, but by a whole pack of such beasts. Suddenly, the beast stopped and raised its head, its growl turning into a terrifying howl that made the forest tremble. Lily closed her eyes, clenching her fists so tightly that her nails dug into her palm. Tom looked to the side, trying to find at least some sign of salvation, but his gaze was met only by an impenetrable fog. Jack stood still, his eyes fixed on the beast, which was growling and staggering after the first shot. The beast, wounded though it was not going to give up easily. It reared up on its hind legs, baring its teeth, which glowed with the fire of rage. Its growl grew, filling the forest with a menacing sound that made the mist around it move like an echo.
"You're not the one I scare with one shot,"
whispered Jack, his hands tightly gripping the gun. The beast suddenly rushed forward, its paws breaking the mud underfoot, and it seemed that even the ground trembled under its heavy blows. Jack stepped back a few steps. His movements were quick but careful. The decisive struggle began. The beast jumped, trying to reach Jack with its claws, which were longer and sharper than any knife. Jack managed to jump back at the last second, his body swaying, but he remained on his feet. The beast attacked again. Its movements were quick despite its size. The claws pierced the air, almost catching the hunter. Jack took sharp aim and fired a second shot, hitting the beast in the shoulder. The shell tore through fur and skin, and the beast howled in pain. But instead of retreating, he became even more furious. His eyes glowed even brighter. His body arched, preparing for another attack. The hunter rushed to a nearby tree, using it as cover. The beast rushed after him, its massive body tearing through the branches and leaves like a tank. Jack, despite his age, moved deftly, as if hardened by war. He managed to load his rifle, using the seconds he had gained from his maneuver.
Your cruelty is your weakness.
He muttered softly, aiming. This time he hit the beast in the leg, knocking it off balance. The beast fell, its growl filled with pain, but it still did not give up. Jack knew he could not delay. He quickly approached, his steps sure even as the beast struggled to rise. Aiming for the beast's heart, he fired a final shot. The shell pierced its chest, and the beast howled so loudly that it seemed the forest itself was silent for a moment, listening to the piercing sound. The beast staggered and fell, its body landing heavily on the ground. The fog around it began to dissipate, revealing the sky and the dark forest. Jack stood still, his breathing deep, his heart beating like a drum. He looked at the beast's dead body, certain that this time the struggle was over. Tom and Lily looked out of the car, trembling with fear and gratitude. Jack turned slowly to them, his eyes calm but with a hint of severity.
This forest hides more than you can imagine.
He said, his voice sounding like a sentence. Tom and Lily stood by the car, their bodies still shaking from what they had experienced. They were still trying to make sense of what had happened and how they had survived. Their eyes were filled with gratitude and wonder as they looked at the figure of the old hunter.
Thank you.
Lily finally exclaimed, her voice quiet but full of emotion. She approached Jack, wanting to express all her gratitude, but the hunter only waved his hand as if to stop her.
No need to thank me.
He replied dryly. His voice was calm, but there was a special tone in it.
You are not the first person the forest has tried to eat, and I'm afraid you won't be the last.
Who or what was that?
Tom asked, his voice hoarse with tension. He looked at the corpse of the beast, which was already beginning to be enveloped in fog, as if the forest wanted to hide what had happened. Jack looked at Tom, his eyes filled with the weight of the years he had lived.
It's not just a beast. It's something more. I've hunted it for years, but to be honest, I don't really know what it is. The forest, guys, is not just trees. It has its own rules and its own beasts.
After these words, Jack turned away and began to put away his gun.
Listen to my advice.
He added without looking at them.
Don't wander through this forest alone, especially on foggy nights. Not everyone here will be as kind as I am.
Tom and Lily felt a warmth of gratitude for this mysterious man wash over their bodies. They wanted to offer him help or a reward, but his defiant gaze stopped them.
Just be careful.
Jack said then, swinging his gun over his shoulder, he disappeared into the mist, his silhouette fading as quickly as the sounds of the forest. Left alone, Tom and Lily looked back at the car and the damage done to their evening. But the main thing was that they were alive. The night had been full of horrors, but also a reminder that in the darkest moments, unexpected heroes can emerge. When they got back into the car and finally freed it from the mud, the drive home seemed unusually long. The silence between them was filled with thoughts of the beast, of Jack, and of this forest that seemed to be following them even after they had left it behind. End of story. Please let me know in the comments what you think about this story